In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how you can have full control over the .scene file using the LFA Scene Manager to customize it for your own needs. So let's go a little deeper into .scene. One good reason to keep an object separate from others is if you're going to reuse it and if it has a high poly count. So you might ask, if the LFA tools are meant to be used as a level editor and I have, say, this high poly object that I want to copy it around everywhere I need it, first of all, it's going to get exported that many number of times, and also I'm going to have to manage each copy every time I want to update them. Well, either one of these outcomes could be catastrophic in a pipeline. You don't want either of these things to happen. So the way to manage this situation is to use instances. If you aren't familiar with Maya instances, the only difference between a duplicate and an instance is that instances share shape nodes with each other. They're really exactly the same mesh with different transforms. So let me instance this around a couple times. So let's take a look at the hypergraph after I've instanced a couple of them. You can see that they're sharing a shape node. All the transforms are looking at the same shape node. And if I make a modification to one of them, it's obvious that the transform node is just a modifier for the shape node. So let me undo this. Now the LFA Scene Manager recognizes instances. The first thing I'm going to do is untag everything. Remove the tag, and I'm only going to tag these things that are instances. And let's take a look at the .scene. You can see that every entity is looking at the same mesh file. They're all looking at the same thing, and all the instances are accounted for, all four. Finally, I want to point out a couple things about copies and instances. I included some very handy tools that can replace copies with instances or instances with copies, and a couple other functions if you check in the replace and instancing menus. Basically anything you need to do to handle multiple objects you can do right here. And of course you can look at the included instructions too if you want to see what all these do. I'm going to quickly demo the replace tools. Let's say these bullets right here are a particular type of tree, let's say, and I want to replace them with a different type. I can select stuff to replace, select the new thing that I want to replace them with, and then replace stuff with copy. And there you go. The transforms are perfectly replaced. It's pretty handy if you want to switch anything between instances and duplicates, or even styles of things. Now, as you build your application, you're going to notice that you're going to want to send a lot of custom information out of Maya. This might be physics parameters like weight, friction, gravity, or text even, or whatever. So the LFA tools allow you to do a lot of different things with the .scene, and allows you to have a high degree of control over how it exports, so you can store all different types of attributes for your Ogre nodes inside of Maya and have it export out consistently to your application without anyone having to remember it or hand modify any data files. So I'm going to play with some attributes and see how they export to the .scene. The most basic ones, if I select a tagged object, are the node ID and the entity ID. These are automatically on every tagged mesh or skeleton. These are a quick and easy way to identify a particular type of object to your application. Like, let's say I'm in my application and I'm allowed to collect some objects and not others in the application. I could use these to let my application know which are collectible and which aren't. Like, I could just type collectible, or I could identify which objects are to be interactive or hidden during an event or anything. So let me finish filling these out. I'll put in this one blah blah, and let's see how they export. You can see the ID, the node ID, it says collectible, and in the entity the ID says blah blah. So let's try to add some environmental parameters to the .scene. If I go to parameters and environment settings, it creates this E in the scene, and with it you can specify things like clipping, terrain, or a sky dome, a sky plane. Now realize that this E has no significance in itself. It's just a node that the tools use to save these attributes into your Maya file. You can transfer them around by transferring the E around, or if you want to just get rid of it, you can just delete it. But let's see how it exports. And here you can see all the environment parameters I chose. Now the LFA Scene Manager treats locators as very special objects. We're going to create one now. I can make this locator behave in any number of ways in the .scene, as you can see here. I'll let you guys look at the docs for more details on all the locator uses, but they include using it as a particle system. Using the locator, for example, I can even insert arbitrary text into the dot scene. If I set the locator to text, and if I open the attribute editor for the locator, and I go to the notes section down here, I can type like whatever I want. And then when I look at the dot scene for the locator, you see it right here. Now I just wrote garbage, but you could insert actual XML in there. So the locator is a really powerful tool for controlling what outputs to your dot scene. Now the most powerful tool for modifying your dot scene is user data. User data is simple but really powerful, and once you get into development, you will definitely find a lot of uses for it. If you go to parameters, add user data while selecting a tagged object, it allows you to attach any number of attributes and values to any exporting node. So let's just put some values in here on the node and in the entity to see how it exports. We'll call this 1 equals A, 2 equals B, 3 equals C, and AA, BB, some garbage values, C, D, E, and F. Let's look at how this exports. You can see right here in the node you have user data reference 1 equals A, 2 equals B, 3 equals C, and in the entity you also have user data reference, which is the one that I put A equals B, C equals D, E equals F. Hopefully you can see how powerful this is in storing information automatically in Maya and keeping the specifics out of your code and in the data. The LFA tools were designed to basically help you keep things manageable. So hopefully this makes your life easier. Enjoy.